We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the calls for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for
that? We as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been doing.
Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody?
Hey there, Dr. Wallace, your screen is black. I hope everything is all right. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Come on into this wonderful show today. Come on in. Let us know where you're from. Hello there, Sharon Mitchell from Michigan. Hello there, Rosalind Leslie from Delaware. Yeah. Hello there. New York is in the house. I see you. Hello there, Dr. Kai. I see you from Jackson, Mississippi. Hello there, Reverend Casey from San Antonio. We see you.
And Church, Texas.
Church is right outside of San Antonio. We see you. You. Okay. It's nice to see you in the room today. I'm glad you're feeling better. Dr. Wright?
It is well. We have the most amazing weather in Kansas City on today. But, I even though the weather is wonderful and everything, I have to start out by talking about my team, right? Because my team went to Germany, Speckelsy Deutsch, all that stuff, went on over there and just slapped the Dolphins back to where they had to swim back to the States.
I mean, we were doing so good. I mean, just so good.
Took them out. Took them out. Halftime was 21-0.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I mean, we asked
that is
it was Dr. Wallace. It was this. I said, "Well, Dr. Wright, how are you doing?" And she talks about this Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, and
that's not relevant information for us.
Listen, win, lose, or draw, I'm still a Dallas Cowboy fan. Yes, I am.
I won't hold it against you. I love you.
That's all right. The
team sucks, but I love you.
Okay, come on, Bradford. You running this show, not
today
right. Come on, Bradford. Come on.
Today is voting day for some of us, and I'm praying that you get out and vote because your voice does matter. There are a lot of propositions on the ballot. And we definitely need to vote for or against. It depends on your point of view. We don't tell you what to do. We don't tell you how to vote, but please vote.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So Wallace, how are you doing?
I am wonderful. I voted.
Good girl. We see it. We see you, Georgia.
I'm in Georgia, and I voted. And you're not the only one with amazing weather. We will have amazing weather through to the weekend. Hallelujah. So it'll be 80 degrees here in
heat wave.
In Decatur, where it's greater.
Rosalind Leslie is saying that Kansas City Chiefs, that's her team as well. Okay, well, good for you. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. I guess the weather here is just fine. You look at what it was last week, and then you look at it what it is today. I mean, kind of like what we're about to talk about today, mental health. It needs a mental health checkup, I would assume, but I am grateful that we can adjust and we can navigate through it all. So that's wonderful.
Amen.
Dr. Wallace, we want to give our guest ample time and ample opportunity to share what she needs to share, because today's topic is what we need to hear today. So
Absolutely.
we're going to yield the floor to
All
you.
right. Let me introduce our amazing professor and guest. The Reverend Dr. Jessica Young Brown is a licensed clinical psychologist who works as clinician, educator, consultant, and speaker. She is assistant professor of psychology at Virginia Commonwealth University. I think that's in Richmond. There, she teaches in the area of applied psychology and coordinates undergraduate internships. Her research and clinical work focus on making mental health accessible and equitable for people in the margins and marginal communities, as well as equipping mental health professionals to better serve these communities. Dr. Brown's area of consultation include the impact of racism and race-related stress on mental health, generational and cultural trauma, and the intersection of faith and mental health. She has written several articles, and they are all peer reviewed, as well as some of the popular magazines. Dr. Brown has authored Making Space at the Well, Mental Health and the Church.
All right. All right.
Mental health and the church. So that is our guest today. Welcome, Dr. Brown. She was
Hello,
my professor at
hello.
during the I did a continuing education, and she did Black Women's Resistance is a self-care and mental health. So I am so delighted she agreed to be with us. I looked at her material again for this past weekend's retreat on Black women and mental health. So it was good to go back and look at that self-help stuff that we need to definitely look at. We're going to ask you, Dr. Brown, to answer a few questions. One of them was, and it's not, maybe not one that we've sent you already, but in my research for the last 5 years of Black women and mental health, I found an article in July 2023, and I believe it was from Emory University, where they did a study on PTSD in marginalized communities. And I was just blown away by the statistics that they offered. First of all, they said in the general population, PTSD is about 7%. In marginalized communities, about 8%. But for Black women, PTSD was 73.8%. That blew me away. And most of every one of the articles said that a lot of the mental health issues that Black women face is around discrimination. Can you speak to that? Has that been your experience as well?
Sure. So I imagine that statistic is probably higher than people have seen. And so that's kind of a double-edged sword, because in one way, it means that we in the mental health field are finally attending to Black women and recognizing the intensity of the experience we have in the world, right? Because for much of our existence in this country in particular, we've just been ignored, right? I mean, there's a reason the Black maternal Black maternal mortality rate is so high, because Black women get ignored, right? There was a study from UVA, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that medical students, this is like in the 2000s, y'all, medical students actually believed that Black people feel less pain, right?
That's
and
right.
so in some ways, a striking statistic means y'all are finally paying attention to all the screaming and hollering we've been doing about how much pain we were in, right? So that's one piece. The flip side of that, though, is even if that number is exaggerated, let's say it were only half of Black women. Now, what we're saying is half of Black women are walking around feeling unsafe. Half of Black women are walking around in hypervigilance because they've identified that the world is a constant threat to them, right?
Yes.
And we
Yes.
know when we're operating in fight or flight, how can we show up as parents, as partners, as friends, as leaders in ways that match our sense of integrity if we can't even like settle in our bodies and in our
Mm,
lives,
mm,
right? And so for me, that is really a clarion call, both around us as mental health professionals. Like one of the things I try to do when I teach baby therapists in all forms, right? So undergrads and graduate students. And one of the things I tell them, like very early in the class, is like, I'm going to teach you this, and I'm also going to teach you all the ways we're not getting it right, because
mm.
we have a responsibility to make our profession better as you matriculate.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I think we have to figure out if there are that many people in a particular group hurting at that level of intensity,
Mhm.
what do we do to attend to that need and respond to it? And then how do we help Black women to recognize, because that's a big piece, right? Recognize I am walking around as a traumatized person,
Mhm.
and then attend to that so that we don't stay in that vicious cycle that keeps us feeling unsafe and hypervigilant and overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
Wait,
That
wait,
leads
Brown,
right into my second. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Wright.
Dr. Brown, do you think that part of that is because we, as women, Black women, have been put in the position to where we carry everything?
Yes.
that's womanism.
We cook,
Absolutely.
That's
we
womanism.
clean.
Hmm.
I mean, honestly, we work
Hmm.
24 hours a day
Pretty much.
because we get up, we get the kids up, we do the breakfast, we get the kids off, we get dressed, we go to work, we come home, we get the dinner, we get the homework,
Mhm.
we take care of the house,
Never
then we
ends.
go to bed, hello, and we go to work again because we got to take
Mhm.
care of the husband, hello, somebody.
Mhm.
So it's really a 24-hour job. I mean,
You're
You're
right.
right.
You are
You're right. I mean,
absolute.
reality
if
The
we
is,
think
mechanism
about
shows it. Hmm.
if we think about the strong Black woman archetype, right, and the way that shows up in all of our lives, I mean, look, Shanika Walker Barnes said it's too heavy a yoke,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
we are we're living it out, and we simultaneously know that it's too much,
Hmm.
right?
Wait,
Hmm.
wait a minute.
Absolutely. It's just too
Wait,
much.
wait, wait. I have to ask, I have to say this. Well, Dr. Aminata is saying Black women are not afforded the time to even consider their
right,
own mental health condition.
right.
But
Hmm.
Dr. Brown, you're sharing that we're finally seeing that we're hurting.
Mhm.
No,
I think
other
we
folk are
are.
seeing it. We
I-
know. Go ahead,
So
Dr.
here's the thing, though. There's a difference, and
Well,
y'all
we're
know
recognizing it.
there's an internal process and there's an external process,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's one thing for me to say, this is too heavy. I'm doing too much. I can't function this way. I'm tired. I'm taking care of all these people, and
Mhm.
nobody's taking care of me, and I'm not even taking care of me, right? There's an internal process
Yes.
there, but there's an external process that says, I actually can't be everything for you because I want to be something for myself. Or
Boundary.
there's the external process that says, I need to reorganize my life so that I do get sleep, so that
Hmm.
I do have fun, right? I mean, that's part of what is so subversive about Trisha Hersey's work, right? Is she's
Mm.
like,
Mm.
no, why am I participating in a system that hates me?
Hmm.
Boomer.
But
That's
Right?
we're
it.
And
That's
almost,
so
what.
I
we're
That's
think
it.
almost
The
made,
target.
but we're
it's
almost
owning
made
those
to feel
parts of that.
guilty. We're almost made to feel guilty for taking that time because it's such a demand and
Mhm.
the expectation. Some years ago, I remember I got up, I just didn't feel the greatest. And I said to my husband, I said, I just don't feel good and I'm going to lay here a while. Well, that lay here while ended up to be like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was on a Saturday. He had gotten the kids dressed, fixed their breakfast. They were watching TV, and he came upstairs and he plopped over the bed and he said, "You really don't feel good." And I thought, If I was waiting on you, I'd have died. But the mindset was, you never get sick. Yes, I do. I just don't show you that I'm sick because I know I gotta do it moving. I gotta keep it going.
Gotta
And thank
stop it.
God for maturity and growth in those areas, because you get this far in marriage, you do better. But there are people that are still operating this way because they feel like they have to.
Right.
I got to do this.
But we
So
gotta
let's tie
start
this back.
creating
Dr. Brown.
boundaries for ourselves. I think that's and Dr. Brown, you can speak to this, but one boundary is no. No, I'm not going to do this. Another boundary is saying I have to take care of myself, so I'm going to step away from some of this craziness. But the self-care is absolutely necessary. That even though you have to put it on your calendar to do Black women's mental health breaks.
Dr. Brown, you wanted to respond to that?
Yeah, so I want to just tie this conversation in particular back to this statistic around PTSD, right? So one of the characteristics of trauma is that in response to having been harmed, we no longer feel safe, right? Vulnerability feels like a really scary thing. And so the challenge, if we're talking about Black women walking around in traumatized bodies, just think about the vulnerability it takes to say to a friend, to a partner, to a coworker, I'm tired and I need a break. Especially when I'm aware that that is contrary to the way they view me and have understood me in the past, right? And so it's easy for us to say, you need to take a break, you need to stop. But part of the pressure that we feel, and Dr. Sarita, you were talking about the guilt, right? Part of it is we have become so inundated with these images of ourselves as indispensable, not true, right? And that part feeds our own ego, right? Because they're not gonna do it like I'm gonna do it. No, they won't. But you'll also be tired, right?
But so what?
Right. But so part of it is this interpersonal dynamic of, if I actually do show them, will that change how they view me? Will that change my relationships? Right. And so I just want to honor how complicated it is to try to disentangle yourself from that narrative. It really is hard. And I will say, in my therapy practice, I can't tell you how many Black women come to me and say, I've been to my PCP, they've run every test they can think of,
and they can't find it.
Nothing is actually wrong with my body, but here are all the symptoms I'm having, right? And so what we know is that while our spirits may be strong, our bodies will tell on us if we're not setting those appropriate boundaries and if we're overextending ourselves.
Right.
So the goal is to be in relationships that are mutually beneficial, right? I mean, I have children. I don't expect my children to attend to me in a certain way, right? But one of my commitments as a parent for me has been, I don't care if my children ever say that I'm strong. I really don't. Like, I'm not invested. I don't want my mama sacrifice everything for me. No, I don't. I'm not. I'm gonna make sure you're well fed. I'm gonna make sure you're taken care of. I'm gonna make sure you're loved. But I'm not gonna sacrifice everything for you, because that leaves nothing for me.
Right.
And I also want you to have a model of what it looks like to set healthy boundaries with people you love. Right? But that is an intentional choice I have as a parent, and a choice I have to make every single day. It's hard work.
Right. Exactly. Which really leads us right into our first question, and that is that you propose that Black women's mental health is a sign of resistance from oppression. Can you share some more about that? On what oppression resistance means in relationship to Black women and mental health?
Sure. So the first part of it is owning that we live in a white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchal, right, society. And if you think about all of those systems,
Mm.
Black women get the short end of those sticks,
All of them.
all of them,
Mhm.
right? And so we exist sort of at the bottom of the systemic totem pole in some ways,
Mhm.
right? Our bodies are commodified.
Mhm.
We are often envisioned sort of in relationship to other people rather than for our own good. Like if you think about the Black woman stereotypes, the
Mhm.
mammy or the sapphire or the right, like all of
Mhm.
those are actually about other people's representations of us and
Right.
not who we are as
Exactly.
individuals,
Mhm.
right?
Exactly.
And so there's something really audacious as a Black woman about deciding to attend to yourself, right? Like
Mhm.
even that idea is so subversive. This
Mhm.
idea that, like, all of these other relationships are important to me and we are communal people. So it's not to say that the relationships don't matter,
Mhm.
Right.
but how I engage in those relationships
Right.
is equally as important.
Mhm.
And if I'm attending to my own mental health, it actually demands that I show up in those relationships differently
Mhm.
because overextension doesn't become my MO. You know
Mhm.
what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that is subversive. I mean, even think about the whole stereotype of the angry Black woman is like a Black woman setting a boundary, right? And it's so offensive to
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
that they call us angry and everything else, right? When in actuality, even if I were angry, the curiosity is, what am I angry about, right? What boundary of mine have you traversed that got me there? you
Mhm.
know? And
Mhm.
so I think it's important for us to recognize and to have intention around the extent to which the little decisions we make to
Mhm.
invest in ourselves are ways that we can combat these oppressive systems, right? We
Mhm.
march, we vote, we were talking about
Mhm.
voting earlier. All of these acts of activism are really important and we should do those. And we know Black women have taken the forefront in all kinds of
Mhm.
um, campaigns in that regard.
Mhm.
And my decision to sit down and have a cup of tea at the end of the day and just be with myself and be still and read a book just for fun or do a devotional or do a
Mhm.
puzzle or color or do nothing is equally resistant
Mhm.
because it pushes against this idea that if I'm not working either on a product or in service to a person, I have
Mhm.
no value.
Right.
That's the lie we're working to
Mhm.
uncover.
Mhm.
Wow, that's great. That because you talked about the angry Black woman, but what about this strong Black woman motif that constantly gets replicated in society, and um, even with you know, I, I think sometimes we need to shed that
Mhm.
strong Black woman, because you're right, we can't carry everything, we can't, but it's in our bodies from generations, because in
That's
generational
right there.
DNA kind of pushes that. How do we heal from
Yeah.
that
Ooh.
generational
So,
PTSD and
so can we
everything?
talk for a minute about like the two components of generational and cultural trauma, right?
Yes.
So on the one hand, it's a learned behavior, right? So as a female child, my natural inclination is to emulate the behaviors of my mother,
Right.
right? For good or for bad.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in families, we actually tell people, oh, that's not something you should cry about, or you need to suck it up, right? All the things that we say. Um, so there's that component where it's a learned behavior. To your point, Dr. Brenda, it's also a genetic issue. So here's the really fascinating thing about it. Trauma does not actually change your genetic code, right? Your DNA doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
What changes is the way the genes are expressed, right? So switches are flipping in response to those traumatic events. such that something my mother experienced, the way those genes then get expressed in her offspring, prepare those offspring for the thing my mother experienced, right? So generations of Black folks experiencing racism, the way those genes get expressed in us is that we are ready for racism to occur, right? We show up hypervigilant. We show up watching and waiting for something to pop off. We show up ready to defend ourselves. Do we need that? Yes. Do we need it all the time? No. Right? A part of mental health is actually being flexible in how I show up. So I do need that. If I go into this racist, hating, white supremacist workplace, but in my home, I don't want to show up ready to fight. Right? And so we need that flexibility. But when our genetic expression gets shifted, we have less access to that unless we're taught. Right? So that's a part of sort of the background, and how we shift it is actually that we really work to understand, like, okay, the thing that I do, what am I reacting to? What scary event am I trying to stave off in advance? Right? And that helps us to kind of build the flexibility. Y'all knew I'm a mental health professional. I'm gonna tell everybody to go to therapy.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Because
We talk about that on this show almost every week. You gotta
All
go to
day,
therapy.
every day.
right.
You gotta go to
Because part
therapy.
of what happens with these generational trauma reactions in particular is that they're unconscious. We're not deciding, it is reflexive. And so we have, in some ways, we need help observing ourselves so that we can see, what is the way I'm showing up in the world? I think about this a lot with my parenting. So, to make an intentional decision. For instance, my daughter is 3, and we call her the boss baby. So, like, everything that entails, she's that, right? She's, I could call her aggressive and bossy, but I could also call her assertive and a leader, right?
Yes.
The language matters.
Absolutely.
And if you've ever had a child, you know how 3-year-olds are, right? So there's a lot of like intensity that just goes along with her existence. And part of my challenge is like, I actually don't want to stifle this thing, even though it's annoying to me right now, because when she's an adult, I want her to have the full range of her experience. I want her to know it's okay to narrate her experience and to stick up for herself. And I actually want her to know that it's okay to be mad and sad and frustrated, that is a part of the full range of human emotion, right?
Yes.
But that takes a lot of work. It's actually a lot easier to just shut her down. And so her health depends on my ability to manage myself as a parent so I can show up in a way that she has space. And so that's how, many mental health professionals will tell you one of the most powerful healing factors, whether it's trauma or anxiety or depression, is healthy relationships. Right? And so those connecting points, whether it's what we do for ourselves, whether it's what we do for our children, whether it's what we do for the other people that we're in community with, can be the healing factor that helps people to find that flexibility and find another way.
Awesome. That's whew. And it is a conundrum because it is difficult for us to change. Behavioral changes are difficult, and they happen over time. And a lot of us have found that we needed to create that space and to do something different. A lot of times, though, it doesn't come until there's a serious pain. We get so sick and tired of being, as Fannie Lou Hamer would say, of being sick and tired, that we then, shut down, oftentimes completely, and that's not healthy either. Which is why therapy. So, Dr. Brown, what are the tenets of good mental health look like for Black women?
Yeah, so in general, good mental health involves being able to understand and attend to our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
being able to understand and respond to stress, particularly not just stress in a vacuum, but how stress impacts up. Oh, I love the feelings wheel. That's my friend. I see only adults, and I keep a feelings wheel.
That's right.
I also have a feelings wheel that's like emoji faces,
Uh-huh.
because for us, we often don't have access to even the full vocabulary about our feelings
Right.
because we haven't had experience with that, right?
Exactly.
So another piece of it is self-concept. How do I think and feel about myself? And how does that shape how I move through the world? And then healthy relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, all of those things really encompass, particularly for Black women, attention to spirit, however spirit shows up for us, attention to our relationships and community,
Mm-hmm.
and then attention to sort of the larger understanding of our Blackness.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we're talking about how Black women take care of the whole community. And that is a womanist ethic, right? So how or what does that look like to be that womanist and have good mental health? It seems like it might be antithetical if I'm saying that as a womanist theologian, yeah, I'm going to take care of the whole community. So that's a lot right there, and we've been talking about this already. So share with us what you think.
So let me caveat this by saying I'm not a womanist theologian, right?
Oh, what
And
about psychologists?
I, from my perspective, the womanist ethic is to love the folk, right?
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily have to mean taking care of the folk.
Okay.
Oh, you go help somebody? Hey, glory.
And so the
Yeah, that's
curiosity
good.
I have is, how have we filtered even the womanist ethic
Hmm.
through this capitalistic white supremacist lens that demands we work ourselves to death? I,
Hmm.
I
Mhm.
just I just think it's important for us to interrogate that, right?
Hmm.
And for Black women, maybe that means we've got to find new ways to love.
Mm.
Maybe
Mm.
love doesn't have to mean giving all of myself, right?
Mhm.
What I listened to, actually, I can't I'm gonna have to look up the name of the book, but Alice Walker's journals were published a couple of years ago.
Mm.
I don't know why I can't pull the name. Anyway, I was listening to it on audiobook, and the vast majority of it is pretty much her unedited journals from these different sort of periods of her life. And one of the things that was really foundational for me when I was listening to it is like how many times she changed her mind about things throughout her life. You know, like she just had this sense of like,
Mm.
okay, sometimes I feel this way, but sometimes I feel this way. And you know, she as a scholar and as a person is of course not without critique. But
Mhm.
I wonder in some ways if when we have expounded upon this womanist framework, we've added things to it that were not a part of the original design.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm. That's good.
Wow.
We need to meditate on that for a second. Um.
Pause right there.
Mm.
We've added too much to it. But you said how we show up in love
Mhm.
should look differently
Mhm.
Yeah.
than it has in the past. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
can you speak a little more about showing up differently?
In
Not
love.
in love, not having to, not saying I'm going to do everything for you. I'm going to be all to you. Share share those share a different way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
A new
we as
paradigm.
Black women, we put this S on our chest and say,
Right.
"Oh, I'm going to be everything to everybody." Please.
Right.
Mm.
So I'll give you a little example. My son is 7. He'll be 8 in a few weeks. and he is yet striving to learn how to tie his shoes, right? And so he is a person who is actually used to getting things right immediately. So
Perfect.
it's very frustrating to him that it's like in his mind, it's taking him too long to figure this out. Right. And so sometimes in the mornings, he's trying to tie his shoes and he really wants me to just do it for him because it's distressing for him to not get it exactly right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do, I love him. I don't like seeing him distressed. But if I do it for him, he will never learn to do it for himself.
Amen.
And so my way of showing love in that moment is actually to be with him as he struggles, not to fix it for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that's what I mean by showing up differently. I actually, maybe I don't have to fix this for you, but maybe me loving you and loving myself at the same time is that I can actually be with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can reserve something for myself because I deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also show up for you in a way that says, I'm here. I love you. I want the best for you, but I can't fix it all for you. Right? And so I think it's really important when we think about showing love, like what does that mean? I have a person I'm working with right now, and their conception of love is I'm going to do all these things for this person to prove that they need me, because that's what love means, to be needed, right? And so the consequence of that, though, is now the only way this person relates to me is when I'm giving them stuff and putting out their fires.
Pause. Pause. That's what love looks like.
Love looks like me fixing all your stuff.
No.
Love looks like me overextending myself so you don't have to feel the pain that is associated with the natural consequences of the decisions that you made, right?
Yeah. That right there.
So when we talk about showing up differently, when we talk about loving the folk, not taking care of the folk, I love you enough to actually be with you while you experience the natural consequences of your actions.
While you struggle. Yeah. I can walk with you as you struggle through this. Yeah.
Right. I'm here. I'm not leaving.
Right.
I'm committed to you.
Yes.
And I love you enough not to look away. I love you enough not to desert you. But I also love you enough to let you figure it out on your own. Right? And gradually, what it does for us too is it changes the dynamics of our relationships. Right? I'll never forget one of the things
setting boundaries.
There you go. One of the things my therapist said to me that at the time really blew my mind, and so I have to repeat it to myself a lot, is she's like, what if you give yourself permission to let people down? Ooh. I was like, I don't do that. I'm an overachiever, right? Like, and really what she was saying was, okay, congratulations, gold star. You're showing up for all these other people, and what's left for you?
My.
And here's the thing. If it's really a loving relationship, letting somebody down in the sense of I can't be here in the way you want me to actually does not rupture the relationship. It just teaches people to handle you with care. Oh, this person isn't infallible.
Wait a minute.
This person doesn't have it all together.
Don't fly by that. Don't fly by that.
I need her to repeat what the therapist said.
Don't fly by that, please.
The therapist said,
in the chat what the therapist said.
Give yourself permission to let people down.
Give yourself permission.
Don't fly by that. But right after that, you said you are showing people how to handle you. Right after that, you said showing people how. Okay. Yeah. You're showing people how to handle you. You're giving them instructions on what to do, and you're actually outlining boundaries.
Yeah. And so for many of us, it takes practice, though, right? To say, listen, I actually am not able to do that. Here's what I can do. It takes practice. And we, you know, I mean, I get like into the nitty gritty with people like, listen, maybe you don't answer text message right away. Or maybe you put your phone on do not disturb.
Ouch, ouch, ouch.
Right? Because some of us need help giving ourselves the space and time to actually consider whether or not we can even respond to the request. Some of us are so reflexive, like I haven't even considered if I have this to offer you. Right? And so we might need time, and that's okay. But it takes practice to build the language. It really does.
Ooh. Yeah, we need a new vocabulary.
Yes.
And maybe you might help us create a lexicon, so that we have the language to utilize when we are setting these boundaries in love.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Dr. Walls, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that to show up in love does not mean that I have to be irritable about showing up. I'm just doing this because I know I need, it's not an attitude. It is, I'm showing up, and yes, I'm tired. I've got to rest. Or it shows up for me when I know that I have overextended, when I get irritable. So,
and that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Right. So we have to know what the signs and triggers are for us. And that is as important as taking the time to take care of yourself. You got to be able to understand your trigger.
Yeah.
Dr. Brown, the comments are blowing up here.
Right.
Give yourself, Dr. Rydercourt, give yourself permission to let others down. Okay, she's writing what you said. Model for them how to show up for themselves. Sister Rafay Neesmith says, let's not forget about all the times we do things for others that they never ask for, never ask us to do, nor do they want our help.
Wow.
Wait,
let
me read it. Can I read it one more time?
That's good, Dr. Nathan.
Let's not forget about all the times we do things for others and they never ask us to do, and they don't even want our help. Can you speak to that, Dr. Brown?
Yes. So we mental health professionals like to call that over functioning, right? And, the curiosity for me is, how did things end up for me that I'm so attentive to other people's needs in a way that maybe I'm ignoring my own? Right? Like, I think often, and this, I can't say this is always the case, of course, but often people who are over functioning are kind of scared of looking inside, or scared of, being still in some ways. Or for some of us, the way we earned love in our family was to do all of those kinds of things. And so doing stuff becomes relational currency, right? And so for some of us, that I deserve to be here, that I deserve to be in relationship, how would that change what I offer?
You just said something. My God, there's a question in the chat. Dr. Brown, you are hitting every end. How do you reach someone who hates to follow instructions and who's all against forgiveness of past hurt?
So I'm not sure what the following instructions piece means, so they can clarify that piece. But what I would say is, one of the things I say, whether it's in therapy or when I'm teaching, is like, everything is an invitation, not a demand, right? A part of the load that Black women carry is trying to drag people places they don't want to go.
Well, it's an invitation and not a demand. Hey,
Right.
you messed all of
She
us up.
said drag,
You all of our faces right there.
kicking and screaming, drag.
Screaming. Right. And so it's like, why am I working harder on your healing than you are? That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. So
Something wrong with you. Duh.
if you always have the right to choose illness. You always have the right to choose unforgiveness. You always have the right to choose not to be better. Here's the thing. I also have a right to adjust my engagement with you based upon the choices you make.
My Lord.
That's the boundary. The boundary is not managing their behavior.
Right.
The boundary is managing your behavior.
Amen. Amen. Because we really cannot change or anyone else. The only and what happens, what I have found when I first started therapy years ago, that it changed my family dynamic. And my
Absolutely.
family grew from me being healed. So it does mean that we have to take care of ourselves. But you just say, I ain't doing that today.
Right.
The clothes can pile up to the ceiling. And then when I get tired, when I get a minute, I'll work on it. But no, I'm not. I thank God for therapy. Jesus, I thank God. I thank God for therapy and the many, 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 many years that because you have to keep going because
Yes,
some of that
Lord.
stuff will show up again. We think we're healed from grief. We think we're healed from the hurts, but we have something will trigger it,
Right.
and we have to. Oh, you start crying. For I hear somebody even recite the 23rd Psalm with the Lord's Prayer. And I can get emotional because my foster mom recited the 23rd Psalm and the Lord's Prayer every day the Lord sent. So it reminded me of that love, but it also made me sad because she's not here any longer.
And here's the reframe, right? That healing is not the absence of triggers, right? Healing is really just having enough awareness about it so that when it happens, I know how to attend to myself. I'm not overwhelmed by it.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's because we often, I think this is probably connected to the way we as Black women show up in particular, is like we want to like go to 6 sessions of therapy and do some worksheets and then be like really neat and clean and all happy. And I don't have to deal with those things anymore. And I don't experience anger and I've forgiven everybody. Like, girl, no, right? Part of owning our whole existence is recognizing, yeah, this person was a parent who loved me. I'm not ever gonna stop being sad about it.
That's right. That's right.
But my awareness of myself is recognizing the sadness is actually only a part of the story, right? There's also joy, there's also subsequent connection, right? And so that it goes to, how can I allow myself to feel the whole gamut of that human experience, right? And I think a lot of us are so hard on ourselves, like Dr. Brenda, you said, when we have those moments where we do experience being triggered, we then engage in this self-deprecation about how we done all this work and I still don't have it yet, right? I'm still broken. It makes me cringe when I hear people describe themselves as broken, right? Because it implies that those soft spots, those soft parts of you are somehow unacceptable. Right. And I just,
oh wow,
we can
Dr.
extend ourselves
Brown,
to
you
grace.
That's heavy.
Mercy. This has been
I think one of the things that's hard many times is because when you see yourself in other people and you find that all the things that you dislike about them might be something that's going on with you. And so, you got to deal with the enemy. While I'm pointing fingers at you and talking about what I need to do with you, I got to address this monster over here that's hating everything about what you're doing.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's a difficult place sometimes. But the um, one of the ladies is asking, should we have a black therapist? I absolutely agree. Um, for the
Black female. If you're a female, black female. If you're a
right,
male, a black male. You
and
need somebody who understands your existence and experiences in this world,
in the
in these United States.
in the
I'm
same
sorry, I didn't mean.
no, you're fine, but I agree with that. And the same with having a black female doctor. You
Mhm,
need to know somebody that have somebody that knows how that body you got functions.
mhm.
Because sister girl's built a little different from you, looks a little different for you,
But
but when all of us are built all kind of different ways, shape, form, and fashion. So it's trying to recognize, okay, this is going on, and I see it in you, but guess what? The reason that it vexes me so bad is because it's going on in me too.
that's it. That right there. That right there. That
Dr.
right.
Brown, we have talked about how we need therapists. There, what role though does self-care play in maintaining good mental health?
I think self-care is a basic skill and process for both sort of recovering from mental illness and also maintaining mental health, because it forces you to attend to yourself and to organize your life around your natural rhythms. So when I say self-care, I'm not just talking about manicures and pedicures and going out for mimosas. That's cute and that can be a form of self-care, right? But self-care really is about, how do I understand and attend to how I function in the world? And this is the key, organize my life around care of myself, right? So the shift is moving from constantly putting out fires to actually having a natural ebb and flow. So one of the I teach a class called Self-Care as a Spiritual Practice. And one of the things I talk about in that class is identifying people, tasks, areas of your life as either drains or wells.
Mm.
So, drains are things that sort of exhaust you, deplete you, overwhelm you. Wells are things that excite you, rejuvenate you, refuel you. So when we have a sense of what our drains and wells are, then we can plant wells around our drains, right? We can organize our lives around wells so that we don't ever have to get to empty, right? Because often when we think about self-care, it's like, oh, I'm so tired. Like you were saying earlier, Dr. Brenda, it's almost like we get to rock bottom and then we're
Right.
like, oh, I need to go on a vacation and do
Right.
self-care.
Right.
But imagine if you actually don't have to get to that breaking point. If your life was organized in such a way that there was just a natural ebb and flow that you built into your life. So the example I give people is, on Monday mornings, the third Monday of every month, we have faculty meetings, right? I've never been to a faculty meeting and been like, man, that was such a good meeting. I'm so happy I went. Like, not ever.
Yep.
It's a drain. It's a
Mm.
drain. So on the Mondays that I know I have faculty meeting at 10, I preemptively schedule a lunch day at 12.
Mm.
So I'm not spending the rest of my Monday exhausted by that thing I had in the morning. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so when I respect myself enough to like pay attention to my energy level or pay attention to the signs that I'm overextended, not just ignore the fact that I'm constantly sleep deprived and my stomach is always hurting and I have headaches and I can't think straight, right? All of those are your body telling you, hey, we need help, something's wrong. So when I attend to those things, when I stop giving glory to pushing through, I can actually organize my life in a way that overall I have a sense of equilibrium. It's not saying I won't have times when I'll be really busy, but I'm going to counteract those with times of stillness, times of fullness, times of rejuvenation. And then my life feels different. Here's the key, so that when I do go on vacation, I can actually rest instead of just recovering from the trauma of my life.
Oh, now
Ooh.
that's good.
Ooh. I'm guilty of
That's good.
resting to recover. I'm
Yes.
guilty. I
I
am
think we
guilty.
all are at some
Mhm.
degree. Dr. Brown, you are amazing. And you have helped us tremendously. I had a few ouches there. So thank you for the ouches.
We're all work in progress.
Right.
Compassion and grace. Compassion and grace.
I will share. Fully transparent. Yes, I was ouching throughout your presentation. So I appreciate your time, your energy, your research, and we will definitely have you back. We're getting comments in the comment section. Please bring her back. You got to come back. So we will have a part 2. So we thank God for you. Please wait backstage. We're ready to move on. Thank you again, Dr. Brown.
Thank you all. Enjoyed the conversation.
All right. So next week we will have none other than Gabby
Oh,
Wilkes. And the
yeah.
topic is stay the course. And when I tell you, strap in and get ready. We're about to get free. So I'm excited about what God is doing on this show. Same time next week. Same time, same channel. Come on back and see us again. Love you. Amen.